So I do believe we're living in something like a digital wasteland right now. I think that the internet's a pretty scary place that is maybe doing more harm than good right now. Like I'm not gonna be one of those people that are like we should erase the internet altogether, but it feels like it's doing a little more harm than good right now. A lot of conversations are being had about this very topic, about is the internet having some of these side effects? I think a lot of these discussions are starting to like ramp up, in the recent years on culture, things like that. And one of the, maybe I'm biting off a little more than I can chew with this video concept, because I want to talk about one of the facets of the internet, one of its side effects that I think is the most harmful, but the hardest to quantify, right? I think someday we're going to look back on sort of this phenomenon of how the internet's phenomenon, one of those two, one of those words, that, on how it's affecting our personalities, right? Because like we can think of, it's very easy to talk about the internet in these grand terms, sort of like, oh, it's affecting like politics or culture, or like, I don't know, name your favorite existential threat or big giant buzzword that's kind of hard to quantify if you zoom out enough, and there'll be a discussion on how the internet's affecting that, right? But I think also right next to that, there is a very individual effect here on all of our personalities. And maybe that effect on all of our personalities is coming to affect culture too. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. I don't really know, how does it work? Because the sum of the parts is never the same as the whole. You know what I mean? Like, it is possible that the internet affects all of our personalities a little bit, and then you zoom out and it kind of has a very different impact on culture or politics, right? Or one of these big, society, one of these giant things. So, I'm not to say that this effect is something that we can zoom out and see a lot, but it's an effect that I've seen in my friends on our personalities. Now, of course, let me cut to the chase here. I feel like I've delayed this long enough. So, I think that we're too self-aware. I've said this before on the channel. I think we're all growing a little bit too self-aware because of the internet, right? Now, a lot of people are going to have a reaction that my friends have had when we've had this conversation, a reaction that I've seen people in other comment sections having, of like, no, people aren't more self-aware. People are less self-aware because they're acting weird. Like it feels like there are more weirdos now than ever, right? And it's true. I mean, there's a community for everything on the internet. You could find a community for people whose hobby is like, I don't know, getting on all fours and seeing who can like run the fastest on sand, right? And like, we'd all look at that and be like, that's pretty crazy. I mean, it could be fun. That could be a fun hobby. That could be a fun crew. I'm not going to dismiss that, but it's certainly out of the ordinary. And I think a lot of us look at things like this, look at these groups that are forming and the virality that often comes from that, and go like, no, like this internet machine's encouraging everybody to be a freak, is kind of the gut reaction to that, right? And I disagree with that. I actually think if you take the sheer number of people and look at the amount that are being, quote unquote weird, quote unquote freakish, right? It's probably really low. It's just those people are pushed to the front of our feeds, right? The sand racing people, honestly, I don't even think, like, I threw that out as a random example because I was trying to think of something. But like, I don't even think those people would make it to the top of our feeds. I don't think they're weird enough. I think people would scroll past that, So like, because of this effect of us seeing all these strange things, I think what we're getting, in effect, is a guide every day on how not to act, right? I'm going to use the sand racing people as an example here because I think it kind of works. I don't know. I feel bad. There might be a real sand racing community out there that I'm hurting right now. So I'm sorry if that's the case, guys. But I join. I think I've come around to it. I think I would do it. But let's say that this goes viral, right? Everybody's like, oh my God, these guys are crazy. These guys are weird. What's the term? Like lolcow, where people start making fun of them or whatever. Like that kind of thing happens, right? And because of that, because you see these videos of these sand racers in your comments, and you open up the comments and you see every person being like, this is weird, or like, maybe it starts getting even a little bit away from that. Like, first, your input's gonna be, okay, don't do that thing, that's cringe, that's weird, whatever. But then you start seeing in the comments even things like, oh my God, he thinks he's cool, and his it is black hoodie, and then you're like, oh my god, black hoodies are weird and bad, you know? And like, all these very, very small things happen. Of course, I'm making a super simplified example here. I don't think at all that this is how it happens, right? I think it's more like you see 1,000 of these videos of 1,000 different things of 1,000 weird people, and you get 1,000 ways not to act, right? And that is, I think, where this degree of self-awareness comes from, right? Could you, back in the day, right, pre-internet, if you were going, and we all lived in a pre-internet time at one point, right? Even before you got on the internet was a pre-internet time, to you at least, right? So before then, you would go in your local community, maybe it was school, for me it was school, that's where I was at before the internet really was a huge part of my life, right? And you would get all these ways not to act. You would know, okay, there's weird Tim over there, everybody makes fun of weird Tim because he, wears Skechers, and then that next year you go to the store with your mom, you're like, Mom, I gotta get the Nikes because the Skechers, everybody's gonna make fun of me. Very simple, right? And I mean, this was like, obviously, not the best even, weird Tim shouldn't have been getting bullied for his Skechers. We all understand that now, we're all at that age, that we go like, okay, that wasn't good, but it was still a very local sort of, I don't even know if I want to call it local, because it's just like a isolated thing, it's the community you're in, or the people you're around, they have things they find weird, and then you eventually are just like, okay, don't do those things, right? And that's social conditioning. Now, what you would see back then is, I don't know, maybe a couple examples of behaviors you shouldn't do a day, behaviors that your peers are going to think are weird, max, like 5, You hear a little gossip in the lunchroom of like, weird Tim was crawling on the walls again, and then you're like, okay, don't crawl on the walls, that's weird, these like very subconscious things. But I'm of the opinion that a little bit here and there is fine, right? I think that's a normal experience. It's sad for weird Tim, but I think it's a normal experience to go through life and get a lot of these examples of like, okay, don't act this way, don't act that way. People are gonna think that's weird. But now, whether you're in school, whether you're in a community at all, to be honest, you are opening your phone and you're getting a million examples of how not to act today. More than you ever even got in school. Everywhere, just everywhere all the time. And beyond that, now you're acutely aware, and half these videos you're seeing are taken to people they don't even know they're being taken. Like, you're acutely aware that there are 1,000 lists of ways that you're seeing a day of not to act. There are 1,000 people around you with cameras who, at any moment, like, you could be clipped in the lunchroom, and everybody, now you're everywhere. Now you are the guy that are all making fun of on the internet. Like, I think because of all these things compounding, what it's made difficult to do, possibly more than ever, is to just like be a guy, like I'm not even gonna go as far as being like to be a weird guy, just to be a normal person who like isn't thinking about themselves all the time, thinking about how they're kind of putting on like a performance or whatever, right? So I think because of this, one of the hardest things, one of the things I think is getting real bad is an inability to just sort of be, like just be without thought, right? And I know it sounds weird, but like here's kind of a strange example of this. We've all like, after a long day, you're like sitting in your room and like maybe you're on your phone, maybe you're reading, maybe you're watching TV, whatever you do to unwind. And like kind of look down at how you're sitting, you're like, oh my god, I look insane right now. Maybe you like get your legs up on like the wall and like your like shirt's half off because of the fact that you're sitting like this. We've all caught ourselves like this, right? And I think like obviously this is an experience we've all had of like, oh, like I'm a slouch right now, like you're decompressing, you're off guard, you're not thinking about yourself and how you're moving or whatever like that. But I think that being like comfortable like that, being able to go out in the world and be like, of course I don't think we should all be sitting like that out at a restaurant, but like being able to just go out in the world and maybe hang out with people or go to a public space where you can feel comfortable like that, I think is just like essential, right? Whether it's going to a public space with your friends and maybe you become weird Tim and people go, that's weird, and that's a thing that happens, but in any regard, I think it's like an essential thing to be able to be comfortable. And I think that's something we've lost, is the ability to just like be and not get made fun of. I think people have been also calling things out more than ever because it's easier, it's more comedy or more material rather, to call people out now that you have a million things you shouldn't do. Before, where you could be in middle school and be like, oh my God, you have a crush on the weird kid or whatever, like something like that, and all your friends laugh. Now you have a million weird kids that you can point at your friend and be like, you're like that person, you're like this person I saw on the internet. And because of that, I think it's so much harder to be a guy now, And I don't know what the solution to this is. I think there's sort of two things you can do. You can either like sort of just not think, try to get off the internet maybe, or avoid that, or avoid people who are like that, or I don't know what the solution is, but I feel like it is definitely a thing that's happening, and I think it's a relatively damaging thing that's happening. I don't know, can you quantify this? Can you ever figure this out? Because this is an observation I've had of my friends, and that we've had discussions talking about, and like things like that, So is this something that can be thought about in very material terms? I don't know. I feel like even to make these examples in this video, I had to like kind of give you a mangled distortion of what is actually happening. It's like a very literal sense of this very subtle thing that I feel like has shifted in my lifetime. So I really have no idea. I really have no solutions. But that's not why I'm here. If I had solutions, I'd go make a dumbass video essay, and then everyone would be like, oh my God, this is a great answer. When I just made, I feel like that's what those are. I feel like if somebody's giving you an answer on the internet, something, that's probably like half-baked, and they're not even admitting it's half-baked. I don't know, that's a whole different tangent. Painting, so I'm getting okay at form. I feel like I kind of have the process of it nailed down. So I want to go in for more abstract forms now, of just like being super fluid, laying stuff down, and see what comes out, and this is what we got today. And you know what? I like it. I want to keep in this direction. I think this could be something cool. So go check this out on the TikTok and the Instagram. And until next time, guys, gals, and pals, my name is Max Dice. This has been Paint Talk episode 292. I'm here every morning, painting and talking with you all.